the sharp crack of a perfect shot, split the air inside the elite shooters club, triggering a wave of applause from the gathering of wealthy patrons dressed in pristine, custom shooting gear. Blake Radcliffe, his sun-kissed skin and smug grin reflecting the overhead lights, lowered his sleek Remington rifle and soaked in the admiration. This was his realm, a fortress built from money, privilege, and the effortless precision he'd sharpened since boyhood. Here, outsiders weren't just unwelcome, they were invisible. But that illusion was about to crack. Near the polished glass doors, Emma Miller hesitated, her worn leather purse hugged close against her body. Her navy cardigan and faded jeans seemed almost defiant in the sea of designer brands, like a single stubborn wildflower sprouting through marble. 35, composed, and carrying the quiet weight of too many battles, Emma knew she didn't belong here, or so they thought. Behind the marble-topped reception desk, a young blonde woman barely glanced up before offering a perfunctory, brittle smile. When Emma stepped forward and spoke in her soft, steady voice, the receptionist barely disguised her disdain. "Membership only," she chirped. Emma calmly unfolded a slightly crumpled envelope. "I have a day pass. It was a gift." Across the range, Blake spotted her, an unfamiliar figure standing awkwardly by the entrance, and saw opportunity. At 42, Blake was riding high. 5 national titles, an Olympic medal, and an oil, fortune-backed career that had paved every inch of his arrogant stride. "Well, well," he drawled, loud enough to draw laughter from his cronies. Somebody took a wrong turn on the way to Walmart. Heads turned, eyes lingered. Emma ignored them, stepping quietly toward the basic shooting lanes at the far side of the room. Blake, amused, leaned closer with his entourage, waiting to see the show. They didn't notice the subtle strength in the way she moved, or the way her brown skin caught the muted lighting like polished stone. At her lane, Emma gently placed her bag down and unwrapped a simple Glock 19. Not flashy, not expensive, but steady in her hand. She prepared her weapon with the fluid movements of someone trained, not just taught. $10 says she can't even hit the paper, one of Blake's friends chuckled. "Make it $10,000, Blake scoffed. "Bet she's never held one before." Grinning, Blake swaggered over, his voice dripping false sweetness. "Ma'am," he sneered, "you sure you're not looking for the knitting circle?" Emma lifted her head, meeting his blue eyes with a quiet, grounded calm that unsettled him for a moment. "Just here to practice," she said, her voice neither timid nor aggressive. "Practice?" Blake laughed. "Sweetheart, this is for serious shooters. Tell you what, $10,000 says you can't hit the bullseye from 50 yards. Emma's gaze dropped briefly to the simple gold ring glinting on her finger. A twist, a breath, a memory, and then she looked up again. "I don't have that kind of money," she said softly. "If you make the shot," Blake countered with a smirk, "I pay. If you miss, you leave, and don't come back." From a few feet away, Rebecca Johnson, the club manager and herself a former competitor, stepped forward, concern flashing in her eyes. "Mr. Radcliffe," she began, "maybe we should—" "Stay out of it, Rebecca," Blake barked, never taking his eyes off Emma. Emma nodded once, a small, almost imperceptible movement. "All right," she agreed. The gathering crowd chuckled among themselves, already picturing her failure. None of them noticed the subtle shift in Emma's stance. Her feet anchored perfectly, her shoulders relaxing into a practiced position, her breathing slowing. None of them knew that the ring on her hand had belonged to Master Chief Nathan Miller, legendary SEAL sniper known simply as the Ghost. None of them knew that 3 years ago, beneath a gray Arlington sky, Emma had stood with that same ring clutched tightly as the honor guard's rifles cracked the air. They were about to find out. Michael Reeves's words echoed in Emma's memory. "You're a better natural shot than half the men I trained." The last time she held a gun had been 2 days before Nathan's final mission. She remembered the way he had barely fired a shot himself, too busy studying her. His voice had been low, rough against her ear. "Promise me something, Em. Keep practicing, even if I'm not around." She had promised, never realizing how heavy that vow would become. After Nathan's funeral, the sound of gunfire became unbearable. She locked away his weapons, moved to Boston, and hid inside a life of spreadsheets and silence. No one there knew she had once belonged to a man called the Ghost, until a week ago. When Michael's package arrived, a day passed to the Elite Shooters Club, and a short note. 3 years is long enough to grieve. Time to keep your promise. Now, standing under the cold lights of the club, Emma felt a forgotten strength stir inside her. She lifted the Glock, steadying herself. A breath in, a slow exhale, a squeeze of the trigger. The shot cracked through the hushed air, and the mechanical hum of the retrieval system seemed deafening. Blake still wore his smirk, but as he noticed Emma's perfect stance, doubt flickered behind his eyes. The target rolled forward slowly. When it arrived, there was no question. A clean hole punched straight through the bullseye. The room froze. Emma calmly placed her weapon down, unfazed. Blake snatched the target, inspecting it like a magician trying to catch a trick. "Beginner's luck," he muttered, though his voice had hardened. Rebecca Johnson approached, professional mask slipping into genuine admiration. "That was an incredible shot, Miss Miller," she said warmly. "Emma," she replied simply. Before Emma could even breathe, Blake cut in. "One lucky shot doesn't make you a shooter," he barked. "Let's see you do it again." With real stakes. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. $50,000, Blake announced, flashing a checkbook. 3 bullseyes at 75 yards. Miss even one. You admit you cheated and leave. Senator Williams touched Blake's arm, whispering caution, but Blake shrugged him off. "What's wrong? Scared her little trick won't hold up?" Emma hesitated. She hadn't come here to prove anything, but something in Blake's arrogance, the casual cruelty, the public humiliation, ignited a quiet fire inside her. "I accept," she said softly, "on one condition. If I win, the money goes to the Veteran Support Foundation." Blake grinned viciously. "Fine. Won't matter. You'll lose." As Emma moved toward the 75-yard line, Rebecca hurried to her side. "Be careful. No one's beaten his record here." Emma nodded with a calm that came from somewhere deeper than courage. "I'll manage." Blake turned to his growing audience. "Prepare yourselves, folks. Either a miracle or a complete disaster." Emma tuned him out, loaded a fresh magazine. Nathan's voice whispered through her memory. "Under pressure. Trust your body. It knows what to do." The room fell into an electric silence. She took her time with the first shot. Crack, bullseye. The second came faster. Crack, another center hit. Emma paused, twisting her gold wedding band between her fingers, feeling Nathan's spirit steady her hands. The third shot rang out. Dead center. 3 flawless bullseyes. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Rebecca rushed forward, displaying the targets. Perfection. Blake's face paled, rage simmering under his skin. This is impossible," he sputtered. "You rigged it somehow." Emma stayed calm, her voice smooth as steel. "We had an agreement, Mr. Radcliffe." Blake's smirk twisted cruelly as he turned to the crowd. "1 week from today," he shouted. "A formal competition. 10 stations. Different distances. Club-supplied equipment. Me versus our new mystery shooter." Emma stood still, feeling the weight of the moment settle heavily across her shoulders. She hadn't come looking for a fight, but backing down now wasn't an option. "I accept," she said calmly, her voice cutting cleanly through the murmurs. "Same deal. If I win, the $50,000 goes to the Veterans Support Foundation." Blake's grin thinned. "Deal. And when I win, you explain how you cheated." As the crowd began to disperse, Rebecca Johnson approached, her expression tense. "That was either very brave or very foolish," she said in a low voice. "Blake has a lot of power here. He doesn't forgive humiliation." Emma nodded, her adrenaline finally fading, leaving her chest hollow. "I didn't come here for trouble," she said softly. "I just came to keep a promise." Rebecca studied her for a long moment, noting the quiet strength behind Emma's modest appearance. "You shoot like a professional," she said. "Who are you, really?" Emma simply gathered her belongings. "Just someone honoring a promise," she repeated. But across the room, Blake was already on his phone, voice sharp. "Find everything on Emma Miller," he snapped. "No matter what it takes." Fear threaded through his anger. Blake had recognized something the others hadn't. The discipline, the control, the unmistakable signature of military training. By evening, news of the showdown had lit up Boston's upper circles. Blake sat in his penthouse, swirling a glass of scotch, the city's lights reflecting off the river below. Jessica Thompson, his girlfriend, scanned her phone nervously. "They're calling her the unknown marksman," Jessica said, showing him a shaky video of Emma's bullseye. "It's already viral." Blake drained his glass, his jaw tightening. "Luck. That's all it was. Next week everyone will know she's a fraud." Jessica hesitated, then said carefully, "I've seen you compete for years. Those weren't lucky shots, Blake. She's good. Really good. Before he could respond, his phone rang again. Tell me you found something, Blake barked. The investigator's voice was apologetic. Not much. Emma Miller, 35, senior accountant, moved from Virginia Beach 3 years ago. No criminal record, no competitions, no online presence. Blake's face darkened. That's impossible. No one shoots like that without training. Dig deeper. Across the city, Emma sat quietly on her tiny balcony, the cool night air brushing against her skin. Her tea sat forgotten as she replayed the day's events in her mind. Some small part of her regretted stepping into the spotlight, but another part, the stronger part, felt awakened for the first time in years. Her phone buzzed. A call from an unknown number. She answered cautiously. Miss Miller? Rebecca's voice came through, low and urgent. I probably shouldn't be calling, but you need to know. Blake's digging into your past. Emma closed her eyes briefly. Thank you, she said softly. I have nothing to hide. Still, Rebecca added, be careful. Blake's not someone who loses easily. After the call, Emma opened a small wooden box tucked away in her closet. Inside lay Nathan's medals, their wedding photo, and beneath it, his old training log. She flipped to a page marked in his strong handwriting. Emma, 50 yards. 9 out of 10 bullseyes. Better than most recruits. The next morning, Emma called in sick for the first time in years. Instead of heading to work, she drove to a quiet public range outside the city. For hours she practiced. Every shot whispered a promise. She wasn't just keeping Nathan's memory alive. She was claiming her place. Blake leaned back, the light from the chandelier catching the sharp edge of his smile. She won't win, he said. But if by some miracle she gets close, I've made sure there's a backup plan. Across the city, the day before the competition, Michael Reeves appeared at Emma's doorstep without warning. You couldn't return a call? He asked, voice gruff but his concern clear. Emma opened the door wider, offering a tired smile. I've been busy, she said simply, motioning him inside. Michael glanced around, taking in the manuals and range diagrams scattered across her table. So I heard. The whole community's buzzing about you and Radcliffe. They sat at her kitchen table, sunlight catching the gold band on her finger. Nathan would be proud, you know, Michael said. Not just of how you shoot, but that you're stepping back into the world. Emma blinked rapidly, emotion rising too fast to contain. I'm not sure that's what I'm doing. This wasn't supposed to happen. Michael squeezed her hand briefly, his calloused fingers warm against hers. The best battles rarely are planned, but sometimes they're exactly what we need. He stood, pausing at the door. Friends will be in the audience tomorrow. You're not alone, Em. And be careful, he added, voice dropping. Radcliffe's not the type to lose quietly. I will, Emma promised. Thanks for everything. Michael's smile was brief but genuine. Just keeping a promise to a brother. Meanwhile, Blake's frustration had morphed into full obsession. The more he dug, the less he found. Emma Miller appeared squeaky clean. No record, no history, no obvious training. Focus on Virginia Beach, Blake ordered his investigator. Look at gun clubs, ranges. Find out about her husband, too. That night, as Blake stared at the photograph of his younger self smiling with his Olympic gold, the phone rang. The investigator's voice was sharp. Virginia Beach cracked it. Emma Miller's husband was Master Chief Nathan Miller, U.S. Navy SEAL. Killed in action 3 years ago. Blake straightened, heart pounding. A SEAL? Confirmed, the voice said. Highly decorated sniper, known as the Ghost. And sources say he trained his wife. The phone slipped from Blake's hand onto the desk. Emma wasn't lucky. She wasn't cheating. She was the protégé of a legend. A widow carrying forward the skills of the most feared sniper in special operations. The image Blake had built, of an amateur with beginner's luck, was shattering. Across town, Emma remained unaware of the discovery. Thursday evening, her phone buzzed. Ms. Miller, Rebecca Johnson said, voice serious. Another competition change. Blake requested it, the board approved. Final station counts for 30% of the score. Emma's jaw tightened. And let me guess, she said. Blake's favorite weapon? Rebecca hesitated. A custom Macmillan TAC-338. Long-range precision rifle. He's one of only a handful who owns one in this region. Emma closed her eyes for a long moment, absorbing the new hurdle. Nathan had taught her well, but long-range precision wasn't her comfort zone. After the call, she sat with Nathan's old logbook spread open. His words still lived there, steady and patient. Adapt and overcome. The next morning, Emma drove to a secluded training range far from prying eyes. She needed privacy, focus, and miracles. As she parked, a black SUV pulled up. A tall man with military bearing stepped out. "Mrs. Miller," he greeted. "Commander Wilson, served with Nathan in Baghdad." Emma studied him carefully. "I wasn't in his squad," he added quickly. "But we all knew the ghost. Heard you could use some help with the Macmillan." Emma nodded once, gratitude hidden beneath her calm. For 4 straight hours, Wilson guided her through every nuance of the TAC-338. "You've got his patience," he said after a clean series of shots. "And his fight." By sunset, Emma was no longer the widow clinging to memory. She was the force Nathan had seen in her all along. Tomorrow they would both be standing on that line. "Breathing control," Commander Wilson reminded her. "This isn't different, just magnified. Trust what you know." By early afternoon, Emma's shots consistently struck distant targets that had once seemed impossible. As they packed up, Wilson handed her a small notebook. "Distance formulas Nathan developed. Might come in handy tomorrow." Emma took it with reverence. "Thank you, Commander. But why help me? You don't even know me." Wilson's expression softened. "When you lose a brother in the teams, you protect what mattered to him. Nathan talked about you. Said you had the steadiest hands he'd ever seen on a civilian." As he drove away, Emma stood alone, feeling the weight of something larger pressing down. This wasn't just about beating Blake anymore. It had become a collision between two worlds: flashy privilege versus quiet service, arrogance against earned excellence. That evening, Blake Radcliffe nursed another drink in his penthouse, reviewing files spread across his table. Every new detail about Nathan Miller, the classified missions, the whispered stories of impossible shots, chipped further at his confidence. "It doesn't change anything," he snapped, when Jessica urged him to reconsider. "Experience beats sentiment." Jessica frowned. "Maybe it's time to step back. This is getting bigger than you." Blake slammed his glass down. "Cancel now? And confirm to everyone that I'm afraid of her?" "Number tomorrow happens exactly as planned." He picked up his phone, dialing a number from memory. "Everything's arranged?" he asked tersely. The answer he received made his tight smile return. Meanwhile, at the Elite Shooters Club, preparations turned the private competition into a public spectacle. Banners, press booths, and gleaming sponsor logos lined the grounds. Rebecca Johnson moved through the stations, her sharp eyes catching quiet modifications. Small, but enough to tilt odds in Blake's favor. When Emma arrived, dressed simply in jeans and a navy shirt, Rebecca pulled her aside. "Be aware," she said in a low voice. "The setups have been tweaked." Emma only nodded, slipping Nathan's notebook into her duffel bag. Blake swaggered toward her, surrounded by his entourage, his smile cold. "Miss Miller, I trust you slept well?" The way he stressed her name made it clear. He knew about Nathan now. Emma met his gaze without flinching. "I'll manage, Mr. Radcliffe. My husband taught me about pressure." The competition area resembled a small stadium, digital displays showing live scores. In the back rows, Emma spotted Michael Reeves, along with several quiet, watchful men, brothers in arms who had come without fanfare. The first stations unfolded quickly. Blake's years of competition showed. His shots were precise, confident. Emma's method was quieter. Each move controlled, each shot deliberate. By the 4th station, Blake had a narrow lead. At the 5th, Emma noticed the heavier trigger pull on the provided weapon. She adjusted, remembering Nathan's lesson: adapt and overcome. She matched Blake's score. As the competition continued, Emma's consistency across all types of firearms began to shine. Blake's advantage narrowed with every stage. Before the 9th station, Blake approached her again, his tone mocking. "Impressive, Mrs. Miller. Your husband would be proud. The ghost's techniques are distinctive." Emma's hand stilled briefly, but her face remained unreadable. "He valued integrity above all, Mr. Radcliffe. Something worth remembering." When the 9th station ended, the scores were tied. Everything would come down to the final test, the Macmillan TAC-338. Emma approached the rifle and immediately noticed subtle scope misalignments. She didn't complain. Instead, she opened Nathan's notebook, adjusting according to his windage formulas. Blake shot first, scoring 9 of 10 shots within the inner ring. Impressive, but not unreachable. As Emma settled behind the rifle, calm wrapped around her like armor. The first shot, bullseye. The second, bullseye. One after another, perfectly placed. As she prepared for her final shot, a sharp glint from Blake's entourage flickered across her sightline. A distraction. Emma paused, breathing deeply, regrounding herself in Nathan's teachings. The last shot cracked through the silence, straight through the heart of the bullseye. The crowd erupted, the applause rising into a thunderous roar that filled the arena. Emma Miller had done the impossible. The moment Emma's final shot rang true, the crowd leapt to its feet. A standing ovation shook the arena as Rebecca Johnson's voice echoed through the speakers. Final results. Emma Miller, first place. Blake Radcliffe, second. Blake's mask of sportsmanship cracked as he offered Emma a stiff handshake. "This isn't over," he muttered. Emma met his glare with calm grace. "For today, it is," she replied evenly. "And you owe $50,000 to the Veterans Support Foundation." Blake's composure splintered. "You think this proves anything?" he spat, his voice carrying across the now silent room. "A military widow with beginner's luck doesn't replace years of experience. This was a stunt." The audience stiffened. Emma remained unmoved. Rebecca stepped forward, holding up a tablet. "The equipment was tampered with, Mr. Radcliffe," she said crisply, showing footage of Blake's own advisor modifying firearms. "But not in Ms. Miller's favor. Our security logs confirm it." Gasps rippled through the spectators. The narrative shifted instantly, from admiration for Emma's victory to deep respect for her integrity and resilience. Blake stood frozen, his downfall unfolding in front of cameras and club members alike. By Sunday morning, clips of Emma's flawless shots and Blake's angry outburst had gone viral. What had begun as a private competition now carried the weight of a public reckoning, one about privilege, humility, and justice. Emma woke to an avalanche of calls and messages. Reporters, sponsors, strangers offering praise. Ignoring most of them, she dialed the one number that mattered. "It's gotten bigger than I expected," she said to Michael Reeves. "What now?" Michael's voice was steady. "That depends. Do you want privacy or justice?" Emma didn't hesitate. "Blake hasn't paid. The tampering was fraud. There should be consequences." At the Radcliffe penthouse, Blake's crisis team scrambled. "Apologize, cite stress, donate to veterans, check into a wellness program," his publicist urged. Blake refused. "I'm not apologizing. That woman had military training. That's the real unfair advantage." Their meeting was interrupted by a knock. Boston police officers entered, informing Blake he was under investigation for criminal tampering and gambling violations. Meanwhile, Emma met with Colonel James Harrison from the Veterans Support Foundation. "Several board members witnessed the event," Harrison said. "They've begun proceedings to revoke Radcliffe's championship records." He slid a folder across the table. "We're launching a marksmanship rehabilitation program for veterans. We'd be honored if you'd join." 3 days later, Emma reviewed a settlement offer. $100,000 donation to the foundation. A public apology? A private meeting with Blake before any statements? In a sterile conference room, Blake arrived subdued, the arrogance stripped away. "Mrs. Miller," he began, voice low, "I built my identity around winning. When you threatened that, I reacted poorly. Criminally." Emma listened, unmoved. "I didn't compete to unsettle anyone," she said. "I was keeping a promise. Your actions disrespected not just the competition, but the cause you agreed to support." Blake nodded, shame flickering across his features. "I've accepted a 3-year suspension, and the increased donation." Before leaving, he extended his hand. "For what it's worth, you're the best I've ever faced. Your husband taught you well." Emma shook it briefly. "I was a good student," she said. "The right teacher simply helped me see it." 2 weeks later, Emma stood at the new foundation training facility, funded by Blake's donation. Her first students, 6 veterans, each carrying visible and invisible scars, waited for her. "Good morning," she said, voice firm and proud. "My name is Emma Miller. I'm not a soldier or a champion, just someone who learned that sometimes the steadiest hands come from those who have been most shaken." At the foundation's next fundraiser, Emma spoke to a packed hall. "A year ago, I walked into a range just to honor a promise. I never expected it to lead here." When they announced the Nathan Ghost Miller Scholarship for Excellence in Marksmanship, Emma twisted her wedding band once, smiling through her tears. "This one's for you, Nathan," she whispered, "for teaching me how to stand." Perhaps Emma's greatest victory wasn't beating Blake. It was finding her place again, and creating a future Nathan would be proud of.